All right, I think we can start. So everyone, welcome to our upcoming session for the Automation for Security Operations panel discussion. And as you can see, our panel members are already there. So just look at my screen here. We have Farooq, Global Head of Technology and Cyber Assurance from Munich Re. And we have Sasha, Security and Compliance Specialist from Microsoft. And we have Amol, Partner Enterprise Services from CrucialLogics. So welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
And to start the panel, I'd like to ask our panel members to do a quick self-introduction. Then we will start our panel discussions. All right, so who wants to start?
I'll kick us off.
Okay, yeah.
Sasha. Hello, I'm Sasha Lebovic. I am a security specialist with Microsoft Canada, focused primarily around public sector. So I'm the pre-sales lead for public sector and all across Canada, coast to coast. Pleased to be here today.
Excellent. Welcome.
I'll go next. My name is Amol Joshi. I'm a partner at a firm called CrucialLogics. We are probably the only firm in Canada that solely focuses on Microsoft security consulting. So, our whole bread and butter is configuring Microsoft technologies to elevate organizations' security posture without using any other third-party solution. So, our goal is to stay as native as possible and increase people's security.
Welcome, Amol.
Thank you.
And Farooq. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bryan, for having me at this session. So, name is Farooq Naiyer. I'm currently working as the global lead for technology and cyber assurance as part of the Munich Re group. For those of you who don't know about Munich Re is the world's largest and oldest reinsurance company. We do exist in possibly all the key parts of the insurance supply chain. We are a reinsurance company. We own a bunch of insurance companies globally. And since we are talking about cyber, we are one of the largest underwriters for cyber insurance in North America. Just briefly about my role. It's more about cyber assurance, cyber and technology assurance at a global level. But in terms of my profile, I've been a CISO in my past life, working for the public sector, worked for the insurance sector, also worked for the financial services industry. And security operations, honestly, was one of the biggest pain points for me. So possibly looking forward to discussing how security automation can make life easy.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So as you can see from the introduction from our panel members, so we have people from solution providers, we have people from consulting, we have people from the user end, so which we hope to give you various perspectives and to looking at this very important security operations and also highlight automation for security operations. All right, so let's start our panel discussion. And to start, I think my first question really is, because we talk about automation, but what does security automation exactly mean to you? Because each person may interpret that differently. I just want to hear from your perspective, what does it mean? And
I can
go ahead.
Yeah. So, security automation, I think I know that word's being thrown around for a while, but I think it's been in existence for a very long time, even as early as when Curator was released with correlations and things like that. It's basically, rather than having disparate technologies kind of monitoring various different aspects of your infrastructure, if there are ways to correlate that data and then automatically make sense of it, right, for better human consumption, right? That's what security automation should be. Obviously, since the inception of the SIEM technology, that whole automation has taken steps by leaps and bounds, right? And now we are seeing with the introduction of AI tools, the next version of security automation.
Excellent. So that's thanks for kind of also sharing a bit history about the security automation and the SIEM and the evolution of the technology. All right. So who wants to be next?
Well, I think I'll tag on to that. I think really when I look at security automation, I'm thinking of both increasing the efficiency as well as the effectiveness of security operations, right? So efficiency is really around scale, around automating processes that are consuming people's time or that require a very advanced technical skill set that a particular operator may not have. So the efficiency side of that can really help to commoditize some of the more advanced security operations and just make it faster, more effective, give the operators what they need in tooling so that they can very, very quickly respond. I think the other piece of the puzzle too is around doing some of the advanced correlation that again, in many customers that I meet, it just isn't happening at all, right? So there's lots of discrete signal going into independent discrete tooling. There may be zero correlation going on. Or in other cases, they're putting a lot of effort into building their own custom correlation, trying to fuse discrete data sources, parse it, normalize it, and create meaningful analytics against it. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity there around modern security tooling that does those things for you automatically.
Wonderful. So you mentioned very important some stages automation can really play very important roles. And all right, Farooq, what's
Yeah,
your
just
opinion?
adding to what just Sasha and Amol touched on. I mean, the key thing that I look at when we talk about security automation is what's the problem that we are trying to solve? I mean, as Sasha and Amol both mentioned, I mean, as humans, there's only so much that can be managed when we are dealing with responding to security events or dealing with security operations. I mean, just the like, in my opinion, correlations, use cases, or dealing with threat intelligence is something which is dynamic in nature, not static in nature. I mean, your use cases, your correlation should be evolving at the pace at which your threat landscape is evolving, right? So the key thing, I think, which Sasha mentioned, which hit the nail on the head, was about scale. So the thing is that like it's too hard for humans to keep up with so much, and at the same time making sure that they can focus on events of importance, events that are important, because I mean, the key pain point for security operations is actually making sure that they keep eyes on the events of importance and making sure that things which are categorized as what false positives or things which I call noise
Mhm.
are actually kept away. And the only way of achieving that is through automation.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Very important. So Farooq, you actually coming to cover the sum of questions, which I plan to ask as a next question. Really is security automation is awesome, but why we need that, right? So as you mentioned, is in today's security operations, we are facing some major challenges. So I like to continue that topic. So what kind of common challenges or like really big challenges you can see in today's security operations?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. I meet an awful lot of clients all the time. You know, one of the big ones we definitely see is that there are existing legacy security operations in place. They are mature. They use a set of technologies and operational procedures that the teams are very familiar with. Along comes cloud, which is, first of all, in a different place. It's away from the security tooling. It's over some sort of a pipe that is no longer necessarily directly adjacent to where the SOC is. And it has a new set of capabilities, a new method of telemetry collection potentially, and the volumetrics of telemetry in cloud is massive. So we now have an issue of an abundance of wealth of telemetry, and what do we do with it? So I see a lot of challenges around how do you operationalize a modern SOC with both cloud and on-premises? How do you deal with the issues of data gravity in terms of do you backhaul it all? You know, do you backhaul it all to on-prem? Do you migrate it all to cloud? Do Do you do something in between? And how do you operationalize that new security tooling? So those are definitely some of the challenges that we see.
That's a great point because when you have all your assets or data across multiple like a complex environment, like you mentioned, cloud or maybe multi-cloud, and also your on-premise environments. So how do you manage and also get the information like log or telemetry from those assets? So that's definitely a very big challenge. Amol, you have any other things to add?
I do, and I think my view is going to be that from a consulting point of view, and when we go advise our clients on various challenges that they face with security, the number one thing that we see is just lack of standardization, right? There's so many different tools out there that they have to keep track of, right? That it's almost impossible to have an expert per tool, right? So it's like, you have a IT professional that's jack of all trades, master of none, unfortunately, that's trying to hold everything together by its seams, because you have a different spam filtering technology to different EDR solution. There's no correlation between the two. And just a little plug there for Microsoft. I think one thing that they've done well is actually introduce security products at various different levels, right? That you can kind of monitor and manage and share telemetry with using automation, security automation across different platforms, right? I think from a challenge perspective, I see just lack of standardization being a biggest thing, and the bigger the organization grows, the harder it is to bring them to a standardized level, right? So.
All right, very cool. Complex environment, standardization challenge. So those are two problems we identify. Farooq, you want to add another one?
Yeah, just a few things, and they'll link to what Sasha and Amol just touched on. I believe standardization is a big issue, but apart from that, technology itself is a big handicap, right? Because I mean, when you're relying on a specific piece of technology, you're handicapped in terms of inadequate analytics or filtering. You're restricted to the features being offered by the piece of technology. Because the key thing in security operations is how do you make sure that within the security operations environment, how are you able to make sure that all the tools are actually working in tandem with each other? Like for instance, in a security operations center, you're not just running a SIEM, right? You're running a SIEM in tandem with threat intelligence, with other tools, and also getting notifications and information from other tooling also. And that at times does become a big challenge too. Apart from that, one of the things that I want to add to is a skill shortage challenge. I mean, no matter what kind of automation we bring in, we still need humans. And one of the biggest challenges that I've seen is turnover. I mean, we would spend so much of time and resources on training resources on a specific piece of technology, and then they are gone. They get a better job offer and turnover. I mean, this is a great year of a great resignation. That's what they say, and that does impact things, right? So, I mean, automation does make life easy, but I mean, a skill shortage, challenges with technology are things which need to happen. And I think the key thing over here is challenges with standardization of process. And I mean, this all comes down to what people, process, and technology. And what I always say is that people make up a very big part of that. If you don't have people, you cannot run anything. You cannot run a completely automated security operations. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
I think we can have a whole panel discussion on skill shortage alone,
Yeah, that's a common thing for not just the security operations, the overall cybersecurity, and including technology like AI, data science. So that we observe, although there are a lot of topics about the new technology try to replace people, but on the other side is people actually more important, I would say, to how to use those technologies. All right, so those we hear the topics like how do you manage the environment? How do you kind of come up with a standard and also develop a talent? So those are some common challenges in security operations. Now coming to, okay, so in typical security operations center, you get a lot of information. As Sasha mentioned, you have all the telemetry, log files, machine data into your security operations, maybe through theme or whatever tool you collect. Then the big problem I recall Farooq mentioned is all those alerts, noise, all those things coming up, right? So, which is a big pain and a very kind stressful for the security analyst. So, with the power of automation or any other things you can think about, how can we reduce we call it alert fatigue, alert fatigue in the SOC environment? So, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think I'll kick us off.
Yeah.
One of the big thrusts behind our security tooling at Microsoft is really around taking those discrete alerts and really starting to do correlation and cross signal detection using technologies like XDR. So we're really trying to get security operators to pivot to working on incidents, which are a fusion of various discrete alerts that are correlated, that are tied together with evidence, with things like entities, which are binding elements like indicators and threat intelligence, things like IP addresses and URLs and other things that they may in the past have been doing manually by pivoting between different tools or running, scripts or doing other sorts of things. We're trying very much to create an environment where that is being done. It's being presented in a cohesive way in the form of incidents, and so that security operations really focuses on incident handling in that context, so that you're first of all getting a fuller picture of what's going on, and you have the ability at your fingertips to do things like executing automated playbooks that are based on best practices for how you deal with an incident of this type, so that potentially you are dealing with, let's say, an artifact that's come in via email that was later determined to be malicious, that has propagated its way into the organization, onto file shares, into other places within the org, and dealing with all of that, including things like disabling accounts or truing up identity, all as part of an automated playbook. So those are the sorts of things that we've been working very hard on.
Very cool. So, Sasha, you mentioned a couple of several important touching points, if I can understand. Like one is when you collect data, then how do you generate incidents based on the events or data? Then how do you do the incident response and automate the process? So they're kind of like the whole process. There's automation opportunities.
And the other side benefit of all of that is your confidence level in it being a true positive skyrockets, right?
Yes.
When you're dealing with thousands of discrete alerts, each one in isolation may be a relatively low fidelity signal, right? But when they're fused, you get the picture.
Excellent. All right, Amol and Farooq,
Yeah.
feel free to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak from experience, and this was true 10 years ago, when one of the first SIEMs came out, and it's still true right now, and I see people struggle is when their SIEM is not tuned correctly, right? People think that you have your SIEM, you put it out there, and it's going to automate itself. Yeah, it does. It's doing a better job than it used to, right? But you still need a human to go in and actually look at the logs, tune it, to train the engine to say, okay, the traffic from Turkey, it's okay when it comes from, when it has this type of pattern. It's not okay when it has this type of pattern, right? So tuning, people forget, in a SIEM environment is massive, because A, it helps you reduce the cost of the data being ingested, but B, it also lets you filter the noise that Farooq touched on earlier, right? I think alert fatigue is directly related to the amount of tuning that an organization invests its time in performing, right? And then letting the AI take over after that.
Very good insight. Thank you,
Yeah.
Amol. And Farooq, you want to share anything?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that I see a great deal of value in is that when we talk about automation and security operations, and completely touching on what Sasha and Amol spoke about, is that when you actually set up a SIEM environment, I mean, back in the old days, we used to say that a SIEM environment grows organically. And the whole organic growth is actually linked to what tuning, understanding what's the noise and what's not the noise. What are the events of importance? What are the use cases attached to them? And how do you separate the noise from the key events of importance? But the other thing is also, how do you manage false positives and false negatives? And one of the key terms that we use in security operations is the key gray areas and blind spots. Like quite often, the use cases that were defined, which are linked to correlation, are not defined adequately, and that's where automation can help you, right? The automation can actually help you in making sure that you can do profiling based on behavior, and that's where user behavior analytics comes in, right? And detecting behaviors from the baselines and seeing, okay, like for instance, as Amol mentioned, I mean, a login from Turkey or China could be a legit login. Like while I was working for the higher education sector, our biggest challenge was that we had remote students from China who were logging in from China. But there are many organizations who just block IP addresses from China, right? Right. And that's the key thing, and that's the key aspect of using automation on AI is that you can actually train your engine in such a way and tune an engine in such a way that that you can manage those exceptions appropriately. In an environment where you don't have automation, managing exception becomes a nightmare, right? And that's what I see. And the other key thing where automation really helps is threat intelligence too. And I'm talking about tactical threat intelligence over here, right? Because in terms of threat intelligence, you are dealing with thousands of malicious IP addresses, right? And indicators of compromise, which have to be there because I mean, indicators of compromise and malicious IP addresses, I mean, are only good for the first 12 hours, and then the threat actors are recycling them. So the timing is really important too. So I mean, making sure that we're able to use automation for these two areas. I mean, there are a couple of other areas too, but in my opinion, these are two key pain points for security operations where automation can play a really important role.
Very good, very good.
See, there's a saying in the industry that I quite like, which is that collection does not equal detection, right? And unfortunately, what we see a lot is a lot of new environments when they spin up, it's very focused around collection. You know, and you know, it's wonderful that you have this giant repository of data, but unless you know what you're looking for, it's utterly useless.
Right.
And not mention that costs you money as well.
It does.
I call that the false sense of security, right? I mean, remember that people just say that we have like log sources from all our critical assets and we don't see anything.
Right.
That's scary, right?
All right. Okay. So that's a great insight. And the next question I have really is a very hot topic today because everybody talk about Chat GPT right now, right? Feels like overnight AI suddenly becomes the hot topic again, and everybody talk about, okay, would this impact my job or replace my job? Or so I'd like to ask you guys your thoughts about emergent technologies like OpenAI or ChatGPT or anything like kind of this level, how that will impact cybersecurity.
I'll let Amol, you go ahead, please.
I think it's going to impact cybersecurity positively. We are hoping, like, I mean, the demand in cybersecurity skills is so high right now that we can't keep up with it, right? So hopefully it's going to, help us meet the demand, right? The skills shortage that we have. But at the end of the day, let's be honest. These bots it's very difficult to replace a human cognition, right? Just based on the bots. Like for you to feed bots something, the human has to be an expert at some. Like if you look at ChatGPT and you're giving it instructions to write you a description of a product, for example, right? You need to know your product well enough to feed it certain data. You can't just say, okay, write me a description of X, Y, and Z, and it will just do it, right? So at the end of the day, it's something that will augment and make you better. So someone like me that wants to write a better email, right? I still need to feed it the content of the email so it can write it in a more legible format that people would understand better, but I still need to put in my thoughts behind it, right? So I think people forget the human aspect of it. It's also trained by humans. It's also, the models that it's being fed, it's not automatic. People are actually feeding it. So really, it will just help with the skills shortage, hopefully, and it will also enhance the outputs that humans are capable of putting out, right?
Very important.
Yeah,
Feels like it's not just the answer is important. The really important thing is your question.
that's correct. Yes,
The
absolutely.
question to
Right.
the chat GPT.
Yeah.
That's right.
That reflects the level of quality of your answers, right? So if you
That's right.
provide the meaningful context, they will better and fine tuning that. That's great
Right.
insight. All right.
And
Any
let me
other
share my
slide?
perspective if that helps. I mean, I know people are talking about OpenAI, and there's a huge debate going on how ChatGPT can actually replace humans. One of the key things that I often talk about when we talk about all these models is that we need to look at the basic fundamentals around AI. I mean, it's all about the quality of data on the diversity of data, as Amol spoke about. But in AI, one of the key things that we also talk about are the biases which exist there. So the data has to be diverse enough to make sure that it's not biased in any possible way. And the thing is that I think we are pretty far away from even saying that Chat GPT can actually help us with security operations. It might help us in plugging some holes,
Right.
but it cannot in any shape or form, like at this point in time, can replace humans, right? It's not at that level of maturity right now. Like, I mean, it sounds good that you'll have a chat bot, which is going to be managing things, but it all depends on the quality of data it's being fed, right? As Amol mentioned,
Yeah.
if the quality of data is not good enough, is not diverse enough, and perhaps is biased or just inclined towards a certain pattern, then you know what, all hell will break loose, right? So I think cautiously, I mean, people should understand that, I mean, these models are right now just helpful in just addressing a few pain points or just bandaging a few wounds. That's it. That's how I see it. Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using an analogy on this one because I very much see it in a video game analogy like power armor, right? It's going to make us faster, it's going to help us, it's going to make us be more efficient. As a discrete thing on its own, it is somewhat limited in what it's able to do. It can do some things, but to the earlier point, it's not going to necessarily replace humans unless they're doing something extraordinarily mundane and repeatable. Yeah, so it's, when I look at it from a tooling perspective, and Chat GPT has been pretty awesome because it's exposed everyone as a whole to the technology through
Right.
natural language, right? It's not that it's that new. I mean, GPT, the technology behind it, is the integration point. And one of my colleagues, has a little demo and discussion about this later today. Um, you know, the technology's been already in use and has already been embedded all over the place. I think the biggest thing that's changing is it's coming into reach of lower skilled operators who don't necessarily understand AI, but it's being exposed in a way like that chat interface. And it's also being embedded in products, in security products and other products too, in a way where it's just there. And you don't know you're necessarily interacting with an AI anymore. As you're typing into a Teams chat and you hit a particular word for a technology, you suddenly get a context prompt that says, hey, within your
Yeah.
organization, there are 12 people that have expertise in this area and have posted articles in the following location. And by the way, we've created a knowledge base for you that you can reference on this subject. And in a security context, the ability for you to say, look, this is how I deal with this type of a situation. Can you remember this and just do this for me next time in the same order that I did it? And to understand some of the exception conditions. So mimicking the human and understanding what it is we do, I think is a great opportunity. The ability to train automation rules and playbooks in a security context is going to be very powerful. And already is starting, but by the same token, I think a lot of malicious actors are probably already using it too, because there's plenty of interesting use cases. You know, they get to put on the power armor too and get faster and stronger and do what they do better too, right? So
I just read a joke this morning about ChatGPT where a human asked ChatGPT, "Can you write a code without copying it from somewhere else?" Right? And ChatGPT goes, "No, but can you?" And humans like, "No, I can't either." Right? So really, it's you know, something that's already been fed to it, and someone's already, you know, created it, and now it just become making it more accessible, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
In fact, like what you mentioned, the ChatGPT, the P is a pre-trained. Right.
That's
So
right.
the P means a pre-trained. Like
Right.
back to Farooq's point, you need to feed the data to train
Correct.
that, right? So that's the whatever pre-trained is very important.
Yeah.
All right, so this is pretty much coming to the end of our panel discussion. Great discussion, and we kind of walk through the security automation, the meaning, why that's important, common challenge in the SOC, and how do we better manage the data in different environments, and how do we reduce the alert fatigue, and eventually, in the end, we talk a little bit about ChatGPT, which is a hot topics. All right, so thank you very much for our panel members. Before we go, I just want to have each of you, if you can say one sentence or like one point to our audience. So what's your top recommendation for automation for security operations? So what's your best advice?
well, I'll kick us off. My advice is very simple, and anyone that knows me is probably tired of hearing this, but I 100% believe in the concept of modern SOC, where the control plane moves to the cloud. You know, let the tooling be managed for you as a SaaS service, and let all of the benefits of the integration, the normalization of the data, the ability to just use very powerful tooling to protect yourself. I think that is probably my singular most important consideration for my clients.
Excellent. Leverage the power of cloud.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. So, Amol or Farooq?
I'll go. I would still maintain that standardization, right? So try and select products for your organization that can speak to each other seamlessly. So then you can build automation on top of it, right? If you have unstandard products that don't really talk to each other, it's very difficult to build in automation on top of it. So if you can standardize on things, your automation journey would be that much easier.
Standardization is very important. All right, thank you. Farooq? Farooq, I think you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the key thing over here is to make sure that the automation that you're bringing in is actually solving your pain points or a problem for you, not making things more difficult for you. So the key thing is that automation should be used with the perspective of making sure that there's standardization, as Amol mentioned, but it should result in producing fewer alerts, creating more efficiencies, and also making sure that that any automation that is being brought in is tied to some kind of risk values or KPIs too. If it's something which is actually delivering measured efficiency and delivering some kind of productivity, that's where success is. And one of the things that I often say is that make sure that the process is driving technology. The technology should never drive the process. And
Excellent.
that ties back to your point about process standardization.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to put some measurement and really to apply technology to solve problems rather than putting technology before the problems. All right, cool. All right, so thank you very much. So that's all the time we have for the panel. And again, thank you very much for our amazing panel members, Farooq from Munich Re, and Sasha from Microsoft, and Amol from CrucialLogics. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Take
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye for now.